I've known Rabbi Gershom Sizomu for over 20 years now. We met when both of us were in rabbinical school. Of course, he was already a rabbi, which is a story maybe for another time. But I was really struck by his character, his wisdom, the knowledge that he brought into his studies, which he had gained from his grandfather, who on his deathbed told Gershom that he was going to be the next spiritual leader of the Abayudaya, the Jewish community of Uganda. There's much to say about this community that we don't have time for today, but when my family and I were in East Africa this past summer, Miriam and I had the privilege of helping not only to participate in the community with the Abayudaya, but also to teach Torah and to participate in some of the learning. Our kids on Shabbat afternoon were tutoring some of their young people in Torah and Haftorah trope. And it was really an extraordinary time for us to be with their really extraordinary community. And so when I heard that Rabbi Gershom was going to be in the States and was able to spend a little bit of time in Baltimore, I asked him if he would do a couple of things. Last night, he led the davening for our Bayit Young Professionals group, and he did so beautifully. And today I've asked him to share some words of Torah. And so it's my honor to call on my friend, my colleague and my teacher, Rabbi Gershom Sizomu.
Mazal Tov to Alden and to the Fishman family upon this wonderful day on which we had you read from Torah and assume responsibilities of adulthood. And condolences to the families in Israel that have lost their loved ones in this very heinous hostage saga. I come from the villages of Uganda, where there is no electricity or running water, to a place which is, to many Ugandans, seems to be like heaven. So, and many of you take it for granted. I invite you to come and visit my community like Rabbi Bag and Miriam and their children came. And I thank you for hosting me graciously and for being so kind and taking care of me. The devout Torah that I had prepared is an echo to what has already been said. And coming from a place of subsistence farmers, I want to tell you one story. So we lived in a place of hatred for the Jewish people, anti-Semitism. And many of you who know about Idi Amin, we lived in a time where Judaism was forbidden and where Jewish practice was outlawed and where we were branded Christ killers. So we grew up with bitterness. I remember that one time after Idi Amin, one of our neighbors released his livestock, cows, goats. So you don't know what I mean by releasing. In a farming community, when you have cows and goats, you have to restrict them from wandering. Why? Because there are farmers who are growing beans and maize, we call it corn, and we have bananas. These are all green. And goats and sheep and cows, they like to eat these. So I'm saying that one of our neighbors released his livestock. And they came and devoured our crops. The beans, the maize, the bananas, the whole garden was eaten up. And he released them on Shabbat, when we were not at home. So when we returned, we had no future for food. You know what it means? if your crops are eaten up, that means you need to replant again. And we depend on weather, on nature. So the cycle for rain, if the cycle for rain has left, you may not be able to plant. So that was so bitter. I remember that bitterness. The next morning on Sunday, he did the same to complete. And I remember my older brother, Zachariah, mobilized us. My dad had so many children. We were over 10 children. And so all the children, we went and captured those animals. The cows were too big to capture, so we got the goats. And what my older brother did was he cut off the tails. He cut off the tails of the goats, all of them, punishing the animals. And it became even very worse. We thought they would come for us. But the local chiefs came and judged in favor of our family. My dad was not happy with that incident. And I remember my dad opening Parashat Mishpatim. Later, it was somehow like what the children of Yaakov, Levi, Shimon, did at Shechem. You know what happened? That when Shechem took Dinah and raped her, Shimon and Levi killed all the people in Shechem. So that was the bitterness. But what did Jacob say? He said, you have made me smell bad amongst the people. He condemned Levi and Shimon. So my dad summoned us and taught us Parashat Mishpatim. And I remember he read for us this verse from chapter 23 of Leviticus, chapter 23, verse 4, which says, Kitifga shor oivecha, when you encounter a cow that belongs to your enemy, or hamoro, or his donkey, towe, going astray, which is like the same. The animals did not know. They just went astray. Hashev tashivenu lo. Please return it to him. And he continued to read, Kitre hamol sonecha. When you see a donkey that belongs to your enemy, roves tachat masao. Lying under its burden. Vehadalta me azov lo, azovta azov imo. You must nevertheless raise it with him. So my dad taught us to be kind to the animals, just like Alden said. And despite the fact that we had lost all our crops, despite the fact that they were our enemies, the Torah, which my dad read to us, was to hold us at a higher level, that we should not behave like our enemies, that we should behave higher than them. It is a Torah that teaches us kindness, like Rabbi Bag taught. And I learned from then to be kind, because God is kind. God is described as Maleh Rachamim, full of mercy. And it is the Torah that we demonstrate in Uganda. A Torah that has improved our image as Jewish people in the eyes of those who who wanted to hate us. From rabbinic school in 2008, I went back home with some gifts for my community. We drilled a well of clean water, and we opened that well to everybody in the village, the Muslims, Christians, and Jews. We bought 10,000 mosquito nets and distributed those mosquito nets indiscriminately, because mosquitoes don't discriminate who they bite, to save people from malaria and to display kindness that God is. And God always displays kindness in the Bible. Everywhere in the Bible, God is a kind God. Even when the Egyptians were destroyed by the waters of the Red Sea, the Midrash says, when the angels attempted to rejoice, Hakadosh Baruch said, stop. You cannot rejoice when my creatures are perishing. And it is this Torah that is attracting so many Ugandans to Judaism. Every year we convert new people to Judaism because they see us demonstrating the kindness that the Torah commands us to have. Recently, there was a Muslim woman who had the colon cancer, and she was dying. But instead of inviting the imam of her mosque, she called the rabbi. I went to her house, and she said, Rabbi, pray for me. But she was in pain. I couldn't even pray because she was screaming. The cancer was at the 4th stage. What I did is I got this lady, I put her in my Toyota, and drove her 5 hours from Mbale, which is our city, to Kampala, to the hospital. And the doctors at Nsambya Hospital were gracious enough to give us morphine to help this lady die without pain. I drove her back. The whole village was impressed with this fact. And I think as Jewish people, we are the light. We have to behave and conduct ourselves in the highest ways possible. And that's what we are doing in Uganda. Not to attract people to Judaism, but to demonstrate God's kindness and to make this world a better place, not only for us, but for everybody and for every creature. And so the Parasha Mishpatim is full of that, and I'm just echoing what has been already said. I want to invite you to come and visit Uganda, because when you visit, you add strength to our community. We don't feel isolated. We feel great that we are connected to a larger Jewish community. We don't feel like we felt under Idi Amin. We felt very isolated, and almost our community collapsed. I'm so glad and so happy that Rabbi Bag, my friend and my teacher, has been gracious enough to share this bima so that I can speak to you and make you my friends. Shabbat Shalom.